This meeting is being recorded by the host or a participant.
Julie? I think we're good to go.
Hold on a second. I lost my agenda. Okay. Hello, everybody, and Happy New Year. Welcome to the first 2023 meeting of the Nevada State Independent Living Council. Wendy, will you take her off, please?
Yes. Havander Davis,
Here.
Vicky Essner,
Present.
Mary Evilsizer,
Present.
Dee Dee Formaster, Jennifer Kane, Sabra Mc,
Present.
oh, thank you. Sabra McWhirter, Raquel O'Neill, Obioma Officer,
Sabra is here, Wendy. I don't know if she had trouble unmuting. I know we've had some technical issues with our Zoom today, so I apologize to anyone who had trouble getting in.
Yep, I'm here.
okay, great. Okay, Raquel O'Neill, Obioma Officer, Kate Ostie, Cheyenne Pasquale, Renee Portnell,
Present.
Ace Patrick,
Present.
Linda Voivoda,
Linda is just now joining the meeting.
great, and Julie Weissman Steinbach.
Present.
Thank you, and yes, we have quorum.
And it's supposed to verify.
Yes,
Okay. Now I'd like to invite public comment, and I ask you to keep your comment limited to 3 minutes because we have a busy agenda. Dawn, could you call out people because I can't see?
Sure, let me scroll through and see if I see any hands up. Anyone with public comment? I don't see anyone today.
Well, okay, then we can move right into our first presentation from Walter Swenson of Nevada. And
Wonderful. Thank you, Julie. Dawn, I know I sent you this presentation late. Am I able to share my screen? Are you able to share that? Or would you like me to just speak with the group?
You should be able to share it. Let
Okay.
me know if you can't, and I've got it pulled up too.
Yep, I should be good here. All right. I have 3 screens here. So you're looking at the one with the full screen presentation, correct?
yes,
Okay, wonderful. Okay. So now that all of that is out of the way, I just want to thank Dawn, you too, Julie. I mean, the entire Nevada statewide independent living council for the opportunity to speak with all of you today. I don't know who's familiar with Nevada Hand and who is not, but my hope in this, and when I talked to Dawn, about a month ago or so, it was to, inform the community about Nevada Hand, the work that we're doing, talk about some accessibility approaches that we take and what we do as an organization. But before we get into all of that, to let you know a little bit about myself. So in my role at Nevada Hand, and titles are titles, right? But I oversee really three things and lead teams that do our marketing and communications, our fundraising and resource development efforts, and then all of our government relations work. Today, I'm going to give you that overview, talk about currently what we're working on, go a little in depth on our on-site supportive resident services, talk about what affordable housing is, give a little bit of an update of the state of affordable housing. I think we all know we're struggling as a community and a state in terms of the amount of available, affordable, accessible homes, right, that we have. And then just kind of throw some solutions and how we see that as the state's largest affordable housing developer, as how we tackle this problem, how we address this problem. So to dive right in, Nevada Hand is the state's largest affordable housing developer. For profit or nonprofit, we're the largest developer of affordable homes. We are a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to really four major things: the development and the financing on the front end, the construction of the communities, so we build them ourselves through our construction subsidiary, property management, so once they're built and residents move in, we manage them, and then preservation. The fact of the reality is that Nevada, in one example, in 2019, lost more affordable homes than it gained. And so to lessen this gap and close this gap, right, we need to build our way out of this problem. And so we're really focused on that preservation aspect. Every Nevada Hand community that's ever been built since 1993 has been affordable and is still affordable today. And so that's really essential to making sure that we're preserving these units, these communities, these properties for those who need them the most. So we're committed to providing positive living environments where healthy, engaged residents can improve their economic status while also taking pride in their communities. We believe that providing those opportunities and support, and I'll get into resident services, like I said, but for economic stability, health and wellness, education, community engagement, those are really, that's why our tagline is more than a home. It helps residents reach their full potential or have opportunities, right, to do so, stabilize families and transform lives. We focus on only really one type of housing. And what I mean by that is not the single family side. There's great organizations, Habitat for Humanity, many others who are in the affordable single family space. We only do affordable multifamily traditional apartment rental housing. One thing that we're really proud of, and I want to share with you, is that this past year in 2022, Affordable Housing Finance, which is a national group, ranked Nevada Hand as the nation's 26th best affordable housing developer and the #2 nonprofit developer throughout the entire United States. So we take a lot of pride in that. I lost my cursor, apologies. Okay, so just to touch on our timeline a little bit, there's a couple of points of note. So we were founded in '93, so we're in our 29th year of existence. We established our construction subsidiary, Hand Construction Company, in 1997. 2003, that's when we brought in that on-site supportive resident services component. And in 2019, sorry, next slide, 2019, we received $3 million from an anonymous donor to establish on-site food pantries at, it'll end up being 7 communities. Today it's 5, we're still building them out, to address senior food insecurity. So I kind of went over this already a little bit, so I'll skip that. Our property portfolio. So we have 35 affordable apartment communities. They're all throughout Southern Nevada. Every community we have to date is in Clark County. That does not mean, and I get this question every day, so I'll address it. We are not opposed by any means to building throughout Nevada. We understand that this crisis is not a Southern Nevada crisis. It's a crisis throughout Nevada. It's a crisis across the country. Obviously, it's a different operational model for us and a logistical challenge. So the needs where we're at today and where we were founded, but in the future, I could see us moving throughout the state just to address that. So of those 35 apartment communities, we really serve 3 populations. We have 11 independent family communities, 22 independent senior communities, and then we also have the only 2 affordable assisted living communities in the entire state as well. So I want to touch on those a little bit. These are our assisted living communities. It's called Hand Senior Living. It's one of the fastest growing long-term care options for aging seniors. And like I said, we're the only organization who does so. So we provide 180 apartment homes for our residents. And they're designed, right, as we know what assisted living is, for those who need support and services, but they don't quite require a nursing home's level of care. So our team's comprised of professionals trained, medical techs, dietitians, other service staff who extend around the clock care to ensure comfortable living. And we ensure that these are affordable, all-inclusive, and unique. The average rent at these communities, is $2,700 a month. And as we know in the assisted living space, the average is typically around $6,000 or $7,000. For all of our independent living, our average monthly rent is $700 a month, for $733 a month to be exact. So that's just a little bit about our assisted living. Like I mentioned a little bit before, we're all throughout Southern Nevada. So there's just a little minor, it's just a screen grab from Google Maps, but a little heat map to show the location of our properties throughout Southern Nevada. And our approach. So, we see firsthand how a stable, affordable home really impacts individuals, families, entire communities. We work really hard to ensure that people in every stage of life have the dignity of a safe place to call home. So I guess the question is, right, how do we do it, and what's our approach with this? So the first thing that I think is important to touch on, I'm happy to answer questions, but me talking about tax credits at cocktail parties is not that exciting. If you guys want to get more into the financing, I absolutely will though. But affordable housing is made affordable because of the financing. As an affordable housing developer, we're competing for land, materials, other costs within the normal market, and rents that we receive are the only source of income to pay for normal operating expenses like property management staff. We pay for utilities for our residents, maintenance, insurance, right? So these operating costs that we're paying are the same as market rate in luxury multifamily developers. So it's really this special financing that makes it possible for us to keep our rents affordable for low-income households. So regarding our approach on this, from a development side, we're really intentional about where we locate our homes, making sure that residents have access to schools, transportation, and other daily needs. With our construction practices, we create home, right, by building high quality, efficient, accessible, and attractive apartments with amenities that are intended, right, to benefit our residents directly. Over 20% of our units are built with the option to be modified. We have type B units, right, that are consistent with the design and construction requirements of federal fair housing law and requirements. We have the type A units constructed to meet section 1003 and other local code requirements. And we see, right, that in order to live stably in the community, many older adults, people with disabilities, many people experiencing homelessness, they need assistance to be able to obtain accessible, affordable housing. Many need help connecting to supportive services such as personal care assistance, transportation, excuse me, I have a frog in my throat, transportation, behavioral health services, and other services like that. So by recognizing that, we're really conscientious and forward thinking, I would say, to put it in a way, to understand that the overall well-being of those who live in our community sometimes need those additional features. So we keep that front of mind in our construction and development process. On the property management side, we engage with our residents and neighborhoods to ensure that our communities are safe, they're clean, they remain a high quality asset. To provide a 10,000-foot view on resident services, I'll go into a little bit more, but the goal of our on-site resident services is to provide pathways to future stability and success by connecting residents to critical programs and resources. So I'll just touch on that a little, but go into it more later. Affordable housing, you know, it's the foundation for great communities. It's where people and economies thrive. It's that housing first model. And we're really proud to be a leading part of that solution in Southern Nevada. There are many other great players in the community. Ovation, for-profit company, does build some affordable. There's lots of other community partners and players who do this work. We're not the sole one. And what I want to say is I hear this not all the time about Nevada and other things that go on, right? We're really good at collaboration in the housing industry, using best practices, working with other states, and other developers to be like, ooh, that works great. Let's do that. And sharing information, because at the end of the day, we're all mission driven and we're all trying to help people. So if Dawn gives me the go ahead, I would love to play just a short 2-minute video, unless you tell me no.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. Let me know if you can hear it. Shout out if you can. Oh, I paused it. Sorry, apologies.
Nevada Hand is the state of Nevada's largest affordable housing developer, and we happen to be a not-for-profit organization. We're dedicated to the financing, development, construction, and management of high-quality affordable housing units and supportive services for low-income working families and seniors. Since 1993, our mission hasn't changed. We're here to help our neighbors in Southern Nevada by providing affordable housing solutions and services.
At Nevada Hand, we invest in people. We bring together resourceful, respectful, curious people in different disciplines who are passionate about what they do and dedicated to solving real community-wide problems.
We don't just build housing, we provide hands-on resident services at all of our communities. At its core, resident services provides critical programming and resources to our residents to empower them to climb the ladder of success and strengthen their prospects for the future.
The operations team is where housing happens, whether it's helping someone get their online payments set up, register for utility assistance, or fixing an AC. We always strive to make the experience more than a home.
Watching a new resident's face when you hand them their key and they walk into their home and head right onto the patio is the best part about working for Nevada Hand.
Trabajar en un lugar donde podemos conectar a residentes con recursos para que crean oportunidades para que vivan bien es la mejor parte de mi trabajo.
As Vice President of Corporate Affairs, I get to witness the complexities of our work. With multi-layered financing, sustainable construction practices, and essential property management, one of the major strengths about Nevada Hand is the collaboration. The essence of what we do is always resident focused, and that is why I believe that our organization is worth supporting throughout our year-long fundraising efforts.
By supporting us, either by working here at Nevada Hand as a part of a team or through a generous donation, together we can make Nevada Hand more than a home. Every day we are helping our residents, but on a good day, we may change a family's life. Welcome to Nevada Hand.
I promise I'm not plugging you guys for donations. So that's just in there because the audience sometimes goes to prospective donors. So I wanted to share that because I think it gives, it provides a few examples of seeing our residents, seeing our staff in action, seeing a visual of our communities and the high quality nature of them. So what are we currently working on? Wow, this font just kept getting smaller and smaller as I kept adding to it. So, we in 2022, if you saw in the news, Decatur Commons was a pretty big project, the largest affordable housing community we've ever built to date, the largest community in the last 5 years that's been built. It was 480 units, 240 for families, 240 for seniors. We also just recently this month completed our Desert Pines rehab. So rehabbing is essential to affordable housing because that property was built, 20 years ago. So ensuring it remains high quality. So stripping it down, new carpet, new drywall, changing the layout sometimes. We're very practical, but also, thoughtful in our efforts of what we do. Under construction right now, we have 220 affordable units at Rome Pines in North 5th Street in North Las Vegas. We just started a rehab of our current existing Rochelle Pines, which is 115 units. And then you'll see in the pipeline, we'll be breaking construction later this year on those 2 developments. I'll also tell you there are about 5 other projects in the pipeline right now. The reason they're not listed is a lot of it, the financing was provided, community housing fund dollars from Clark County or ARPA dollars from the Nevada Housing Division. So we're working through all the technical aspects, but I would say in a month or 2, this list will have an additional 3 to 5 projects on there in that way. So let me go next slide. Economic impact. Affordable housing, people don't view it this way, but it's an economic engine through generating jobs, economic activity, tax revenue. According to the National Association of Home Builders, for every 100 affordable apartments that you build, it generates 12 million in local income, over 2 million in taxes and revenue, and creates 160 jobs. So this is a snapshot of our annual economic impact at Nevada Hand. Our residents, this is the reason we do the work that we do. I already talked about our portfolio a little bit, but in those 35 communities, right, we have 8,000 people who live with us every day and reside at a Nevada Hand community. The average annual incomes typically range between $15,000 annually and $45,000. You can see the averages there for family assisted living, independent, and what those incomes are. Only 10% of our residents have a source of rental assistance. So housing choice vouchers, project-based vouchers, that long-term rental assistance, only 10% of our residents are utilizing that. And we're coupled with this with life-changing and community-enriching resident services. So I talked about this a little bit, but we recognize that residents need more than a home sometimes, right, to build that stable life and have that opportunity. So that's why we're really focused and dedicated to providing on-site resident services. A good way I like to explain it is resident services acts almost like a concierge service where they first conduct a collaborative needs assessment with every resident, and then based on that need, connects them to programs and services that most effectively meet that resident's individual needs. So think of it as we're meeting residents where they're at, and we're not just putting programming in front of them. It's truly needs-based. I think a good example of our resident services effectiveness is that over the past 3 years, 10% of the residents who are family residents who left renting with us moved on to purchase their first home. So we're building new communities, but that's also freeing up a unit, right? Someone moves into home ownership, that frees up an affordable unit. So we're providing, I'll go next slide here. I think there's some examples here. Critical connections, programs, referrals, resources that truly help our residents climb that ladder of success, strengthens their prospects for the future, while also increasing the community and our community's economic viability. The work I always have to talk about this because the work we do would not be possible without the generous support of our community partners, businesses, donors. This is a list of, it's just a handful. I probably should put them all on there. I don't want to leave people out, but of our community partners. So a few examples here, for children and teens, we offer homework clubs, after school programs, vaccination initiatives, back to school physical clinics, food security programs. For adults, we connect residents with workforce development programs, skilled parenting, financial planning, things like that. For seniors, we focus on supportive services that really improve the overall quality of life as residents age in place. You'll hear Nevada Hand talk about aging in place with dignity, and that's something we want to instill and we value. One other thing is, this year you'll see Nevada Hand launch our Emerging Leaders Board. It's handheld collaborative. It's a multi-tiered membership model that will really power our mission through engagement, advocacy, and networking. and an opportunity for other organizations to get involved, to learn about what we're doing, hopefully lead to philanthropic donations that ultimately just help us power our mission and deepen our impact in the community. Yeah, I mean, this is straightforward. You know, quality housing is an essential part of what we do in Nevada. What is affordable housing? So, you know, HUD defines it as paying no more than 30% of your income towards housing costs. In Nevada, there's a definition that's multi-layered. There's 4 tiers to it, where renters make up to 120% of AMI. They're eligible for affordable housing. What's the state of affordable housing? So the fact is that we are last in the country in terms of the amount of available affordable homes. This number is probably, I'm assuming when this report comes out this year, will be the high 80s to maybe early 90s in terms of the amount of units that are needed. Renters make up nearly half of all residents in our state, and which is top 5 of the state's highest percentage. And the average monthly rent is around $1,500 in the community. During the pandemic, we saw that number, that average was the high 1700s. So it's come down a little bit on average, but still unaffordable and out of reach for many. This is kind of just some of the points I touched on, but more statistics. I'm sure Dawn will circulate my presentation. You can take a look, but I don't need to read to you. But what are the solutions? You know, we need to grow our way out of this problem. We need to build our way out of this problem by bringing more affordable homes and more housing in general to market. Prices will naturally go down a little bit, right? But it's more than that. That long-term rental assistance that I was talking about, housing choice vouchers, project-based vouchers, we need more of those in the state. We need to expand the low-income housing tax credit program. That program amounts for it creates 90% of the affordable housing throughout the country. And bringing more resources to our state through that program will truly make a difference. Land availability, right? We all live here, right, in Nevada. We know that there's a lot of land. You fly into Las Vegas or you fly into wherever, right? You're up in Reno, you see there's land everywhere. The reality is, and everyone's like, oh, just keep building out, right? The reality is it's federally owned. I mean, 85% of our land is federally owned. It's Bureau of Land Management land. It's tied up in other entities, government, and it's not available to be built. It's not developable today. So streamlining that process to free up land for greater development. And, you know, another thing that we really embrace is vertical integration, building up, starting to embrace that concept of treating land as precious because it is finite in the sense that it's not accessible to us. So having land is critical to the work, obviously, as a housing developer, but for the whole community as a whole. And philanthropic dollars, you know, as a nonprofit, our resident services is only provided through donations. There's no line item that says, oh, this is going to pay for that, right? It's all donations that come into the organization that allow us to pay for the services we provide. That number, transparently, is about $3 million a year. It's not a small number. And so that's really what part of what my team does is we're dedicated towards marketing our organization to raise dollars. You know, when I think this is the end of my presentation before I have questions. When I joined Nevada Hand 3.5 years ago, I joined the organization when I was asked to because I was so impressed by the quality of the product and the impact that it's having on residents and the community. And what I've learned is that we are oftentimes called the best kept secret in Nevada. And that's what I'm working on changing, because obviously that has an impact on dollars raised, which has an impact on the difference and the magnitude of a difference, right, and scope that we can have on people who are struggling and need housing. So that was long. I appreciate you listening in. I will answer any questions if anybody has any of them. Let me stop sharing.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
I do have a question.
Yes.
Are there any plans to expand your program to people with disabilities who are under the age of 65? there's a lot of us out here who desperately need accessible housing.
Yep. It's a great question, and and then the question, right, is are there any plans for us to build accessible housing for people under 65, right? I mean, that's family housing, it's housing, I mean, housing for everybody, just accessible housing and people with disabilities. Nothing in our pipeline currently. But I don't say that as something that's not something that we don't value, right? I mean, we see Opportunity Village, we see other providers in the community who do this work. Is it enough? Not even close. And I love Opportunity Village. Like, it's such a great nonprofit in the community. But from our position, it's those community partnerships, right? That's just one potential. There's many others. Or just doing that work on our own with building independent housing for people with disabilities in that way. I'll tell you, as part of our leadership team, these are conversations I have all the time. And will it move from conversations to action? Yeah, it will. I think that, we've seen a transformation, and Nevada Hand's been great forever. But we have our model down. We know what we do well. And so it's getting a deeper understanding, I think, of the true needs and what goes into that, right? I mean, we have expert construction staff. We have experts in these industries and fields. But I think part of this, and why I love that Dawn connected me, right, is me learning too. Learning what that need is. Looking at the data, hearing the qualitative side of it, and taking that back to my team, us getting that in front of our board so we can have those conversations, because that's the business that we're in. And is it something that 2026, 100 units is being built? No, we don't have that today, but I'll tell you, it is a focus, and don't be surprised at all if you see something from Nevada Hand in the future with that. So, I hear you, and I'm sorry that there's limited options. It's not right in the world by any means, but we're doing our part, and I could see us in the future focusing on that specifically, or additionally, I should say.
Julie, can you see the participant list to see raised hands?
I see Renee. And I ask people.
Hi, Julie. This is Renee. My questions, I know in the handout that we went through with the hands, they talk about transportation and assistance with bathing, cooking, vacuuming the house and such. What about people who are up north? I don't know about the south, but up north, if you're too far away from the buses to come and get you, taxi doesn't want to come and get you, you're confined to your house. Do they have a way of working out transportation for that issue? Because my second part is, I have a daughter with disability.
Mm-hmm.
She wants to live in her own apartment or house, whichever one she can afford, and be independent with assistance in the areas she needs. But she doesn't want to leave me because she knows I can't go to her when she needs her mother.
Yep.
And so I'm just wondering how you work things like that around.
Yeah, no, it's another very valid question, a good question. We're solely in Southern Nevada. I would be speaking out of my lane if I touched on, I think, transportation options, outside of Clark County and even outside of what Nevada Hand provides for our residents. So that's hard for me, but I understand. I mean, I work closely with, MJ Maynard at the RTC of Southern Nevada. Their Metropolitan Planning Council, and these are things that we take into account with, building by a bus stop. I know that's not what you're speaking of specifically here, but we are making those efforts here in Southern Nevada. I think in Northern Nevada and throughout, and even Southern Nevada, I don't think our transportation is perfect by any means. Transportation is hard. It's outside my lane, though. For us at Nevada Hand, so our transportation, we provide those services to every senior community. we pick up residents at their home. So outside the front door, we'll take them to doctor's appointments, we'll take them to grocery stores, and then we'll return them. It all runs on a schedule. It runs, I believe it's 5 days a week. I don't think it's 7 days a week unless that's changed. And so for us, you know, it's apartment buildings. So we pick them up and then we take them somewhere and we bring them back, and it's on a coordinated schedule. For the community at large, I mean, those are big challenges. You know, I can relate to that in the form of our workforce, you know, employees that may not have adequate transportation options. You know, sometimes we'll get, you know, Lyft cards or Uber cards and pay for it in that way, or get a grant to pay for it in that way. But I'm sorry that I can't provide you more helpful advice with that. But for us, that's what we do. But I do acknowledge and see that what you're speaking of is a challenge that the broader community is facing.
Well, I see any Linda, do you have a really quick question? Because
Yeah, Julie, I just want to know, Mr. Swenson, if you guys are having any plans moving up to the northern region of Nevada, because we could use your help badly.
Yes, you're the 15th person today to tell me, like, every day. I know, and I don't make light of it. It's the outreach that others throughout, I mean, the other, you know, dozen plus counties, right? I mean, 17 counties in the state, like it comes to me and to us as an organization, because that's the reality. The need is everywhere, right? I mean, when you look at the per capita numbers of affordable housing, yes, there's more units in Southern Nevada, but the need is actually greater, you know, in Washoe and up north. So, do we have plans? I wouldn't say that it's like, we know that in 2025, we're going to build this development. I'll tell you, we're having a lot of conversations though with community partners right now of, hey, this could be a possibility, but what needs to kind of flip from a financial side is, you know, land may need to be sold cheap if it's owned by a corporation or a governmental entity. It may need to be provided, right? Because the operational challenge for us is something that we're doing a study just internally, looking at numbers of what that looks like. And it's always hard for me because I don't want to say no, but the reality is, like, right now we don't have that plan. But I mean, if I'm not a gambling person, I know this is Las Vegas talk, but like, if I was, I would say that yes, in the future we will. But that plan is not in we have a 2-year strategic plan and it's not in there right now. But we're redoing that we have another one coming up. So we'll be sitting down with a new strategic plan, and, you know, we take all of this into account. We know the need is there. It's for us operationally with the resources we have, it's a challenge to kind of move outside of Clark County right now. But, you know, with the work we do, I would love in the next, you know, let's say 10 years to say, oh, there's 500 units in Northern Nevada that we provide. I think that could be the reality, but it's also not my place, I think, to promise that or plan that. But I forward these conversations and cascade them to our board and our leadership. So I will do that after this and recap. And it's just another example, I think, of emphasis of the need elsewhere.
Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you.
Okay. We need to move ahead.
Julie, there are a couple of people with questions still.
Okay, do we have time?
I think we should make the time. This is a really great presentation that I think all of us do have questions about.
Okay, Ace and then Larry.
Hi, thanks. This is Ace Patrick. Thanks, Julie. Mr. Swenson, I have 2 questions really. First question, I wanted some clarification on, is it, do you have just 10% of your units set aside for Section 8 voucher for the vouchers, or are only 10% of your residents receiving vouchers? Which one is it?
It is. We accept vouchers. It's not, we don't set aside units and say, oh, these are going to be, you know, if it's project-based vouchers, they stay with the unit. If someone receives a housing choice, right, it's a movable voucher. So the unit's there. Okay, so you're sorry, some people, you're familiar. Sorry, I didn't see what organization you're from. But so no, we don't set aside. We accept vouchers. Every unit could be that way. It just happens to be that 10% have vouchers.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you. The other question I have was what are your wait lists like? Because up here in northern Nevada, wait lists are like 5 years to get into a senior disabled residential complex.
Yeah.
And the complexes are fairly small up here. They're like maybe 46 units.
Yeah.
And it's a 3 to 5 year wait list.
Yep. My answer is how high can you count? Because that's the number of people. It is a lot. When we get earned media as an organization and it goes out, we typically average about 2,000 inquiries that next day through email, through phone, through drop-ins. And the reality is, right, and it's the sad reality, we just don't have vacancies. If we ever have a vacancy, it's because it's every unit is financed differently in a sense. Maybe that's not fully true to say, but it's that missing middle group from an income standpoint. So on our wait list, you head to our website, you see our Explorer homes, you have the communities listed. At any time, there's like 1 or 2, but that's because we're in the process of going down that wait list and doing third-party verification from a compliance. We're heavily regulated and with compliance locally, statewide, federally, right? And so right now, I believe there's a few thousand qualified applicants on our wait list. The vast majority who reach out are not qualified. They're either under income or over income. But I don't see that going away. I mean, people are on there for years. So we experience the same thing you do in Northern.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Mary,
Thank you, Julie. Good afternoon, everyone. Wally, I did want to say, I am Mary Sizer, and I'm with the Southern Nevada Center for Independent Living here in Clark County. And please don't apologize for your transportation. We are so proud that Nevada Hand can pick people up. You can take them to the doctor. You can provide them with that companion. And your waiting lists are long. Here at the center, we do work with the HUD vouchers. And we've actually, I've known your organization since Mike Mullen founded it. He was
great.
Awesome. He and I
I
served
love Mike.
committee together. And so what Nevada Hand has done is amazing. Here at the center, we do know you have a long waiting list, but we always share with our housing candidates, get on the list. It won't happen soon, but it will happen someday. And now if we can match you with an opening and a voucher, it takes almost like a miracle to get somebody in housing the way the timing is. And I just wanted to say one more comment on the dignity and the integrity that's afforded even individuals on your housing waiting list. And we have actually been able to place a lot of people into Nevada Hand with those minor miracles. And that's because we don't give up. We know the waiting list is there, but we try all avenues and all resources. So thank you from the disability community that includes all age ranges and all disabilities. And keep up the good work.
Thank you, Mary. I really appreciate the kind words. I recognize your name, actually. I think Marissa Shoup, who runs our resident services and would be that conduit, I think, between community partners and getting residents in. Thank you. And yes, I've had an opportunity. I joined after Mike left, but I used to have weekly breakfast with him. And I'm amazed that he started this wonderful organization.
We are blessed, not blessed enough, because we'll never have enough housing. Because as we know, there's not enough housing for the general population and then for our disability population, because at times we do come into the arena with, points against us. We have to strive even harder to get our community members into housing, and they do make the best residents. Once they get in there, they stay. And if they're having any problems, they also call us, Wally, and they say, oh, I think I'm being recertified. I want to answer all these questions correctly. I don't want to lose my housing because I didn't say the right thing. But your group is awesome. And our team we work well with all of your teams, and we all want the same thing, to see people living in their forever home in a place where dignity is afforded to them, respect. That's so important. But thank you. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. And you as well. Thank you for the work
Thank
you
you.
do.
So this is Dawn Lyons, and I just want to jump in real quick. I know we have a lot to do today, but I really want to thank you, Wally, for coming and presenting this to our community. It's important information, and you're doing great work, like Mary said. And I think that it's great that you're expanding and you've got new projects in the works. And I do think I told you that we would ask the question while you were here. What kind of a percentage of your housing is projected to be accessible as well as affordable? And we did get a question like that in the chat. And so I thought I'd throw that out there as one last question.
Yes. So currently, I believe the number is 20. I don't write a news article on this, but I think it's 25%. It's within a few percentage points of that. That is able to be modified. That doesn't necessarily mean accessible today, right? But it has the backing for grab bars in the bathroom. It is wider doorways, things like that are in place. So partially, fully accessible, I guess, in those ways. To answer the question, because I see the requirement number, I don't know off the top of my head. I'd have to go to, and I can follow up absolutely with you, Donnie. You can cascade it if you'd like, but what that requirement is. I believe that the number is approximately 10% of units today are fully accessible.
Hi, this is Dee Dee Formaster for the record. I'm out of Northern Nevada, and I kind of would like to know, do you have anything planned for the rural areas in Nevada?
For rural areas? Same answer, I guess, as up in, Washoe or any county throughout Nevada. We don't currently have it planned today, but it's something that we know there's that need. When we have a potential partnership coming with St. Jude's Ranch building housing, right? We get inquiries, the same as residents coming in and trying to get on our wait list, community partners, governmental entities, and we get dozens of those a month. So it's hard. I feel bad, but I also know that we do great work with what we do. I wish we could do more. So there's no plan today, but same answer. I could see us doing that in the future. We're not opposed to it. We're not solely like Las Vegas, Southern Nevada. It's just that happens to be where
Raise your hand
thus far.
I thank you very much, Wally. We just lost 23 more units here in Carson City. They threw the people on the streets, which was lovely, and we've had to deal with that for the last 2 weeks now. So, and things are horrible here.
I hate to interrupt, but we really do have to move on.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Wally.
I'd like to go back and ask.
I'll do it.
And ask for a motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting.
Julie,
Yeah.
can you hear me? This is Renee. I'll motion the approval of last month's or last meeting.
This is Dawn Lyons. Renee, can I ask that you amend that to the approval of the October and the December meeting minutes?
Okay, I'll amend it to be approval of October and December, you said? minutes.
I'll second that. Julie, I'll second that. This is Linda.
Okay, thank you, Linda.
You're welcome.
Any objections? Motion carries. Okay, now I'd like to invite Sarah Hunt, who's the director of the UNLV Mental Behavioral Health Training Coalition, to speak to us about AB 37. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to join you all this afternoon. My name is Sarah Hunt, and I am the director of the UNLV Mental and Behavioral Health Training Coalition. I work for the medical school at UNLV, and I'm here to co-present today with my colleague Valerie Haskin on Assembly Bill 37. That will be heard in the upcoming state legislative session. Before Valerie shares some slides with you about the language of Assembly Bill 37, I'll just give a little bit of background about this. So my area of work is on mental health workforce development. So how can we grow the pipeline of individuals who may be interested in careers in mental and behavioral health, such as those that typically prescribe medications like psychiatrists, but also those that traditionally do more talk therapy and support like social workers, psychologists, addictions counselors, and so forth. So it probably is no new news to any of you on the meeting today that Nevada has a significant shortage of mental health professionals. So one of the things that I do is look at how other states are addressing these similar workforce shortages, because we are not the only ones that face that. So my area of interest is in how other states focus on a grow our own pipeline model. So how do we go out and provide education about mental health careers and recruit students in the K through 12 system, adult learners that may be interested in a career change, and how do we get them started on that education path to become a mental health professional? So part of my work is I present that model to different community stakeholders. There's a model out of the state of Nebraska that I think would be a really good fit for the needs of Nevada. There's some similarities there where Nebraska has a significant shortage of mental health professionals. They have two kind of metropolitan areas, Omaha and Lincoln, and then a large swath of land that's rural and frontier. And they've had a 10-year model of growing their own mental health workforce pipeline with some really good results. So I've presented that model to Nevada's 5 regional behavioral health policy boards. And these are boards that get one bill draft request each state legislative session to use it towards some policy change that would improve the mental health care, access to care in their region. And so through presenting that model to the Rural Regional Behavioral Health Policy Board, which is housed up north, it's great to hear so many folks from up north on this meeting. They elected to use their bill draft request to create a similar behavioral health education pipeline center, similar to what Nebraska did. And so at this point, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to my colleague, Valerie Haskin, who is the behavioral health coordinator for that rural policy board. And she will share some of the specifics about Assembly Bill 37.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hunt. For the record, Valerie Haskin, Will Regional Behavioral Health Coordinator. Thank you, Chair Steinbaugh. I really appreciate this opportunity to present the current rendition of AB 37 from the Rural Regional Behavioral Health Policy Board to you. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and get this up and running really quickly. All right, and hopefully it'll change to a regular slide view. Is it in presenter view right now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So just for clarification, we know that the names of the different policy boards, while they are meant to kind of characterize where the regions lay, the rural region actually only includes 6 rural and frontier counties, and those are Elko, Eureka, Humboldt, Lander, Pershing, and White Pine counties. The board membership is completely voluntary, and each board has up to 13 members, and they range from EMS, law enforcement, criminal justice system, to include also peers, family members, and then behavioral health providers, long-term care facilities, hospitals, and others. So it's a really kind of great team model and a lot of different perspectives that we have that come together for each of these boards. So when we were getting ready for this next legislative session, workforce development has been a primary concern of my board for the last several years. And actually last session, we were able to pass SB 44, which focused really on bottlenecks and concerns regarding bottlenecks with the professional licensing boards related to behavioral health. When the board heard Dr. Hunt's presentation on this behavioral health workforce development model, it covered a lot of the points that are of major concern to my board members, because they know that there are several things that Nevada needs. First and foremost, we need a robust pipeline for behavioral health providers in this state. We are trying to grow our own. There needs to be easy ways for people to become providers, or at least simplified paths, not necessarily easy, because we know it's not easy work. Also, knowing that there are successful models out there in other states, specifically Nebraska, and then also it is our understanding that Illinois is launching a similar model, and even Kentucky may be considering another model like this. So there's evidence to suggest that this will work. And then there's also this opportunity for Nevada to be cutting edge and be one of the first states to implement a model like this, which is very exciting. Also, when we're looking at this model, we already have many pieces of this puzzle that exist, but they may only be focused within one institution of higher education, or they may only be focused within one particular service area in the state, and it's not quite statewide. So what we wanted to do is to create something that would incorporate and expand upon all those previous existing pieces, and then fill in the gaps where we need this to be. So with AB 37, the title of it is to authorize the establishment of the Behavioral Health Workforce Development Center of Nevada. And we are open to massaging that name. We know that might be kind of an awkward acronym, but that's kind of the direction we're going right now. And through the center, there's 4 different segments that we want to be affected and focused upon by the center itself. These segments start in K-12 education, move into higher education within the NG system, then focusing on the professional licensing process, and then beyond that, supporting professional practice. So we'll start out looking at the K-12 education piece. So if you're not familiar with CTE, that is career and technical education, and school districts across the state have CTE programs, some of which include different health type of careers like nursing or CMA or other related health professions, but very few of them provide any insight or opportunities for students to engage with behavioral health professions. So one of the things that the board wants to see the center do is to engage with the CTE programming and identify ways to expand CTE programming across the state to also include behavioral health professionals, so that students can get an opportunity to participate, try that out, and see if it's something that they are super interested in. There are also area health education centers, or AHECs, across the state. Each of them has a little bit of a different focus. For example, the one up in Elko is focused on engaging with the Nevada Health Service Corps and in recruiting licensed providers, specifically healthcare providers, into rural areas as well as other underserved parts of the state. And then there's also one in Washoe County that focuses heavily on helping high school students who want to engage in undergraduate programs to become a health professional, and or undergraduate students who want to go to graduate professional education to become a provider of any type, and helping them navigate that process, particularly first generation college students. So working with the AHECs, we want to see how we can engage with them across the state and include the focus on behavioral health professions. Additionally, we would like this segment to bolster efforts to support minority and disadvantaged youth in considering careers in behavioral health. We realize that when you're looking for a behavioral health provider, most of them are white, female, and of middle class backgrounds. So that creates some limitations when we're talking about having people there to provide services for people who know what they're going through. And we want to make sure that we have a diverse workforce with a great set of background to meet everyone's needs. Last, we also want to look for ways to weave that social emotional learning and mental health support programs with students as leaders into peer support or other programs. There is actually one behavioral health leader in Nevada who I haven't asked her permission to share this yet, but this person actually got involved in behavioral health and became a licensed provider because of their opportunity to participate in a peer support program in high school. And so sometimes these are things that are not necessarily considered when we're thinking about promoting different types of careers, but giving people the opportunity to see what that looks like in real time. Next, we move on to the NCHE segment of the center. And this bill would specifically provide funding to the Nevada System of Higher Education, or NCHE, to house the center within its system. So it's really kind of an education bill per se. But the particular programs that we would want to focus upon at the graduate and undergraduate levels would include pathways to marriage and family therapy, clinical professional counseling, psychiatry, psychology, social work, clinical social work, behavior analysts, and all different types of drug and alcohol counselor types, which would also include gambling counselors as well. I believe we are also looking at specialty medical tracks such as psychiatric nurse practitioners, physician's assistants, and other providers that would be able to prescribe medications when needed. Here at this level, we really want to ensure that undergraduate students are prepared for the rigors of graduate school and understand what they need to do in order to properly prepare here. And we also want to ensure that the pathways through undergraduate education to graduate school are created so people understand exactly what courses they will need and how they can make themselves better skilled and more competitive for some of those sometimes few graduate education seats. We also want to create a lot more opportunity for high quality internship and preceptorship opportunities. So these are oftentimes required at the undergraduate and graduate level while in school, and then there are usually additional hours depending on the type of licensure or provider that are required after graduation. So here in this segment, we're focusing on getting that experience in those internship hours while within the educational setting. And here we also want to ensure that students have the opportunity to engage with different populations, people of different backgrounds, and also different settings. So not just urban Nevada, but also maybe rural and frontier Nevada. Maybe not just the nicest part of our urban communities, but maybe some of our communities within urban areas that are completely underserved or have fewer resources. Moving on to the professional licensing piece, we also want to expand the number of approved internship site and supervisors that are approved through the professional licensing organizations. This has been a big bottleneck, particularly for our students who finish their education and then want to gain their clinical hours in an area that tends to be underserved. There also tend to be fewer supervision sites there. So if we're able to streamline that and get education and training to those sites and supervisors who are interested in participating, that can help us create more opportunities and more placement places. This will also require a lot of work with the licensing boards themselves to create processes to improve that efficiency and remove those bottlenecks. And last is the professional practice side. Frequently after graduation, people who would be providers are kind of left on their own. So not only do we need to focus on getting them the supervision and hours that they need for licensure, but getting them the skills and training that they will need to conduct business and be a professional in practice in Nevada. So one of those options is to work with the Nevada Health Corps and other federal programs to help place new students, or new graduates who have completed their licensure in rural and underserved communities, and also exploring other areas where we can get some long-term tuition assistance, tuition forgiveness, etc. We also want to look at the opportunity to train these new providers on the business of doing business. So this could be what's required for business licensing, doing your taxes, hiring, HR, leadership versus management. These are things that are frequently not necessarily discussed, and definitely not to the depth that they are usually needed within the professional practice environment, or within that education leading up to that. And then last but not least, we also want to be sure that we are recruiting eligible providers as those supervisors or sites. So with this infrastructure, there is of course a fiscal note attached, which we'll get to in a minute, but we want to ensure that that money does not go to building a brick and mortar center, but we can use different means to work remotely in order to kind of build a fantastic team that would spread this work out across Nevada and ensure that we have the best people available, and that we would also have an opportunity to engage with different communities, and the center itself wouldn't be overly focused on one community or area of the state. We really want to make sure that we're able to have that representation, because it is so important when getting new providers, hopefully new providers, trained and ready to work. In order to do this, we'd be looking at a hub and spoke model, and it sounds like this is also what Nebraska has done that's worked for them. The center itself would be housed within one of the larger institutions of the system, so UNLV, maybe UNLV and UNR, that's still up in the air, we can figure that out. But then having hubs within the system that would touch each of those 5 behavioral health regions. And you can see this graphic here to the right. It describes and kind of outlines where the different regions are. And while these stars are there just for illustrative purposes as to, you know, where what this could actually look like, we want to ensure that you know that there's no set spot yet for each of these rural hubs. These hubs would provide specific training opportunities for people who may be looking for different types of specialty in practice. And each of these hubs would have their own specialties as well. So maybe one hub focuses on best practices in telebehavioral health. Maybe another hub specializes in organizing transportation solutions for people who are seeking both crisis and non-crisis care, et cetera. And those are kind of some examples of what we're thinking of when we're looking at this model. The work of the center itself would be governed essentially by an advisory consortium. And from this consortium, you'll notice that the makeup is very similar to what I outlined when describing the policy board. This is something that has come up as one of the things that has worked about the boards, is having that broad spectrum of people from across the behavioral health system who can provide insight. So we have institutions within the Nevada system of higher education, providers of behavioral health care. We want the Department of Education and school districts to be represented. We want to ensure that law enforcement agencies are also represented, because law enforcement does frequently end up being the primary encounter of persons in behavioral health crisis, unfortunately. While we're doing a lot to try to fix that, it still happens, and it's still likely to happen to a certain extent, no matter what we do. So we want to be sure that law enforcement agencies, particularly those who may be engaging in virtual crisis care or co-response teams for people in crisis, have the opportunity to kind of see and engage with this center. Consumers of behavioral health care, otherwise known as peers. We also want to make sure that family members who have a loved one who is involved in the behavioral health system or who has used behavioral health services are also engaged. Hospitals and other facilities. So when I say hospitals and other facilities that provide behavioral health care, please keep in mind that the rural critical access hospitals tend to be the primary behavioral health care provider in many of our communities. So that's something to think about, not just in urban counties, but of course in rural and frontier counties. Of course, we want the state involved, so we'd have the Department of Health and Human Services, the Department of Veteran Services, Department of Employment, Training and Rehabilitation, and then other agencies as needed. Sites that provide internships for providers, so that's super important. Representatives of members of the armed forces and the National Guard. We know that our veterans are sometimes falling by the wayside, and their access to care is not what has been promised to them, particularly if they're living outside of Reno or Vegas. For example, if there is a veteran who needs care through the VA in Elko, they have to drive to Salt Lake City, maybe sometimes if they're lucky just up to Idaho, but the distance to care and proximity to care is definitely tricky. And then, of course, we want to ensure that there is representation of persons of historically marginalized communities. So LGBTQ plus persons, as well as BIPOC community members. We also want to ensure that representatives of persons with disabilities are represented at the table. And then anybody else really beyond that. We know that just sitting down and kind of brainstorming what would make sense for these advisory consortiums when the rubber hits the road and this is actually built, there may be other groups that need to be represented as well. And of course, the money. This is what everybody always asks. Okay, this sounds great, but how much are we actually looking at here? So our initial estimates, and just kind of a quick note here is we have not had the opportunity to sit down with Chancellor Urquiaga and his team at NSHE to calculate out exactly what this is probably going to cost. But our initial estimates about $2 million a year. So for the biennium, that would be $4 million total. The Nebraska model itself worked with less money. That's 1.3 million to 1.6 million. But they only focused or primarily focused on psychologists and psychiatrists. And as you saw earlier in this presentation, we're looking at a much broader range of behavioral health professionals. While $4 million for a biennial is not a small amount of money, particularly when we're talking to the legislature, given the budget surplus that has been discussed and the dire need for behavioral health professionals that we can no longer ignore, it's really time that we need to think about spending the money in order to save money later on down the road. When we're thinking about the number of people who were not able to obtain lower level care and were allowed to escalate into higher behavioral health crises or psychologically deteriorate, the costs associated with caring for those people properly or even just putting a Band-Aid on it are much higher than that $4 million total. So with that, here's my contact information. If anybody has any questions about AB 37 or the Rural Regional Behavioral Health Policy Board after this meeting. So I'm going to pass it over to Sarah. Sarah, if there's anything else that you'd like to add.
No, I think, again, that is the bulk of Assembly Bill 37. It's we appreciate the opportunity to share it with you all and answer any questions that you might have now or afterwards. Feel free to reach out to myself or Valerie.
Dawn, you have a question?
I do. So, well, I don't know if it's so much a question as, first of all, I'd just like to thank you both for coming and presenting that very in-depth look into AB 37. It's just an amazing bill, and I'm so glad this is happening. I hope it gets passed because as a person on both sides of the aisle, so to speak, I have been a practicum student in Nevada, and it was difficult to find a supervisor to perform that since I didn't go to a local school. So that was a barrier to me, and I'm sure many others. So, and I really appreciate all the thoughtfulness that went into this and all the different angles you really looked at and who you thought might be important to be included. Because people with disabilities, as you know, there's a high crossover with disabilities, with mental health disabilities as well. So I really appreciate that. And it's great to hear all the details so that we can provide what testimony that we have when it gets to legislature to support this.
Yeah, I like to add that with when we did our survey of what consumers need for mental health service was the top need. So our survey definitely supports this legislation. Does anyone else have any questions, comments?
Really quick, this is Sarah, and if I'd love to see a copy of the survey. That's interesting data for us to see as well.
Dawn, could you get it to her, please?
Absolutely, I can send that to you. It's also, I'll send you the link to our Google Forms so that you can see all the data.
And Don, what I'll do in exchange is we've referenced this model out of Nebraska. I'm going to send you the link to that Behavioral Health Education Center of Nebraska that's under the University of Nebraska Medical Center. So you all can kind of take a look at their programming and what they do to, again, grow their own mental health professionals.
And I will be happy to distribute that. I appreciate it.
Yeah. That's fantastic. Does anyone else have any questions or comments? I don't see any. Yes. Sarah and Valerie, thank you so much for your time, and I'd like to invite you to come back with when it does reach legislation, so we can follow this more closely.
This is Sarah, and you've got it. We will certainly keep you updated. So thank you all. Again, we appreciate any support, and we're happy to answer questions along the way. So thank you again for the opportunity to present to all of you today.
Okay. Question for the council. Are people needing a break, or should we do one more?
Maybe it is a good point to take a 10-minute break and come back.
Okay, let's do that. So it is now 2:21. Sorry, at 2:30. Okay. Welcome back, everyone. We're on item number 5, the discussion of recommendations about the Olmsted
audio now unmuted. Menu, leaving menu.
planning process. And Cindy and I are both on the committee, but I'd like to invite Cindy to lead this discussion.
Leaving ribbon. Zoom meeting.
Thank you, Julia.
Presentation Olmsted Jan. Presentation Olmsted Jan. So
I'm very thankful because I asked Dawn to forward some documents to the council. And I know we want to keep this short because you've been on for quite a long time. The important things for me to tell you folks is that I can talk a lot about this, but there's a lot of good information from the documents that Wendy has forwarded to. One of them is a fact sheet, and the ADSD Olmsted Group lists its various topics, like its phases that it wants to go through, what is really integration based on the Department of Justice's rulings. And that's all in the fact sheet. So there's no point in me reading that to you because you're all really brilliant people and you can read that. If you have any questions, ask me. A couple of things that I think are really important because they're important to me. The ADSB in its report identified certain things that they learned from their previous 2016 Olmsted plan. And among those is that it had a variety of different things that ADSB says was beyond its scope. In other words, it was things that they wanted different divisions to consider. However, it didn't have anybody identified at that. And one of the things that the fact sheet does say that is the Olmsted has to be concrete plans, not just vague ideas. So,
Cindy?
Yes.
Are you able to get a little bit closer to your microphone? It's a little muffled and it's difficult to make out what you're saying.
Okay. Is this any better? Anyway, what I'm suggesting is folks read the fact sheet. Dawn, is that better? Can you hear me better?
Yeah, I think it is a little better.
Okay, thank you. The one thing that at the steering committee, and they are going to have 8 workshops, 4 in the rural areas and 2 in northern Nevada and 2 in southern Nevada. And since this is a huge civil rights statement from this report, I would urge as many members of this group to join in on those workshops. And the way you find out about it is by looking at the website, which is on the fact sheet. Their website is on the fact sheet, and that's been sent to all of you folks. The thing that I'm concerned about as a person with a disability, as a person who's got a son with a disability, and a pretty avid advocate.
Semblance has left the meeting.
Is, and this was asked multiple times at the last meeting, why isn't there representation from other organizations, like let's say
Semblance has
vocational
joined the meeting.
rehabilitation or education? And I guess it was answered, but I never could really understand the answer. So I think in my humble opinion, I think that that's a lost kind of opportunity by this ASB group that's putting this together. But I'm only on the steering committee and listening to it. I think this is an opportunity where they could have a very strong Olmsted plan if they got in those other people and said, let's collaborate. But that doesn't seem to be something that ASB feels this is the right time or whatever. I don't want to put words in their mouth, but they're not doing that.
I'm sorry to interrupt. This is the interpreter speaking. I'm still having a hard time hearing you. It is very muffled.
Ipon has joined the meeting.
I apologize. I have no other way of doing this. I'm at a loss. I'm sorry. We'll keep it short. I would say if you want to give me a minute or two tomorrow, I can get a better microphone and do this tomorrow so people can understand me better. Does that seem agreeable with Julie or Dawn?
Yeah, that seems reasonable.
Okay, we will do that. And I apologize for being muffled. I'll get a better microphone for tomorrow. And Dawn or Julie, let me know how that works out. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Cindy. More to come tomorrow. Okay.
Folder, upper ribbon, tab expanded, home tab, alt followed by H.
That brings us to Dina Schmidt to discuss the upcoming
Alt F4, leaving menu.
agency approved budget. Dina, are you ready to present?
I am, thank you. I'm gonna just real quickly, let me know if you guys can see my screen.
Yes.
Okay, so thank you for having me, everyone. I'm Dina Schmidt, and I have the honor of serving as the Administrator for Aging and Disability Services. Thank you for asking me to the statewide Independent Living Council meeting today to talk about our agency request budget. As some of you may know, there are 3 stages of the budget process. There's agency request, where the agencies put forward their needs. The second stage is governor's recommended budget, which that budget will be developed and issued at the time of the state of the state on, I believe it's scheduled for January 23rd this year. So agencies put forward their ask. The governor's office takes all the divisions and departments and settles that and balances the budget and puts forward their recommendations. And then the final budget is the legislatively approved budget. So I have a lot of information in this slide, and please, Dawn or others, let me know if you think I need to skip, but I wanted to make sure I gave you everything. Go to caseloads pretty quickly, just because they're pretty standard. So majority of our agency budget is based on caseload. And the caseloads are projected by our Office of Analytics. They determine what we anticipate the number of people to be served each year, and then we apply the budget to those services. So quickly going through those, first is the Family Preservation Program, and these are the decision units. Just a small increase is projected, 0.9% in that program over the next year. Our rural regional centers, same idea, a pretty small increase, in fact, flat the first year and the second year, really due to the lack of providers. We have a lot of providers not able to serve people, so our projections are starting to run flat while our wait list projections are starting to increase. Desert Regional Center. And so for those of you that know, we have Desert Regional, Rural Regional, and Sierra Regional Centers that all provide services to individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. These are the Desert Regional projections, again, a small 1% and 3% year over year. Sierra Regional Center, same idea. Again, pretty flat funding. We have our early intervention services that provides services to children 0 to 3 years of age. We have those caseload adjustments here. So again, 2%, 3% roughly in the next couple of years for those 2 programs. Our autism treatment assistance program projections are a little bit higher than most. So we have about a 3% and a 4% increase projected. And then we also have a decision unit to eliminate the wait list for services in the autism treatment assistance program. We're currently projected to have a wait list of about 183, which for those of you that follow the autism program, that's significantly lower than our previous couple of years ago. We were over 800 waiting. Our personal assistance services caseloads and our wait list for those services, as well as our community option program for the elderly, seen here with their wait lists. And so the next couple slides is the caseload requests for those programs, which are all increases, but very slight increases. Long-term care ombudsman program and our adult protective services programs are here. And then the decision units for those. This is the wait list, projected wait list for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities, those people waiting more than 90 days. As you can see, it's kind of a projected increase over time, where we were projecting previously more of a stabilization, and we're starting to see it climb again, unfortunately. So we are hopeful that some of the initiatives in our budget will help address that. So when we get into the nitty-gritty of our budget priorities and some of the new requests we've asked for, aging and disability really focused on infrastructure. So because of all these caseloads over the last biennium, we've received new positions and more service dollars, but we have not received any HR, IT, or fiscal staff. So we're really been struggling to with infrastructure to maintain and to support our teams. So we really tried to focus this budget on making sure our infrastructure was built out. So here you see a request for several positions in budget account 3151, which is our administrative services budget. So these are human resource positions that we're asking for our teams. And on this page, you'll see our information technology requests. Again, for some IT professionals to support our data systems, making sure that we have a timely response to our staff members to make sure their systems are working and operating. And then the third section of that in that same budget is the fiscal operations. So reinstating some funding, we received some fiscal position using federal dollars, American Rescue Program dollars. And so we're trying to continue those using state funds in our fiscal units. And this request is, we have our intermediate care facility. We requested a board certified behavior analyst to support individuals at that facility with behaviorally complex needs. Across all of our programs, we're starting to see more and more behaviorally complex individuals. And so really trying to bring in some subject matter experts to support our team in supporting those individuals and their family caregivers. We are also asking for a new agency manager at Desert Regional Center. That agency has grown substantially, and we really need 2 agency managers down there. As well as our developmental service technicians, who are our direct line staff at the intermediate care facility. We've asked for a 2-grade increase for those staff. Those are some of our lowest paid staff, and we're having a really difficult time recruiting, retaining staff in that facility, and it's essential that we maintain the staffing requirements for the safety of our staff as well as the people we serve. So we did ask for a 2 pay grade increase for all staff at the IC. Oops, sorry about that. I hit the wrong button. Let's see. And then that goes for the DST. So you'll see it in there that all the developmental service staff is the 2 grade. Within our Office of Community, we are asking for the agency manager position to be continued, as well as the continuation again of several positions that were funded with federal Older Americans Act funding. And asking to continue those positions to support our community partners and our grant funding. We are also asking to continue 3 unclassified regional coordinator positions. We funded these positions using public health workforce funds, but we really want to continue them. These positions their goal is to do outreach and education to communities, much like the regional behavioral health coordinators you heard about today and the projects they're working on, how they work with the community to identify policy changes, budget changes, and really inform us of what the needs are in the community. So these 3 positions would be focused solely on aging and disability services rather than the behavioral health. So we're really mirroring some of the work that public and behavioral health has done in hopes that we can highlight and bring to light some of the issues that folks are facing that we serve. As some of you may know, we transferred the Office of Consumer Health Assistance to our agency last session. And so we are requesting some support staff and some funds for their case management system. And here is our adult protective services. This is a reclassification of the social workers within the adult and the supervisors within that program. Again, we've been running at anywhere from 40 to 55% vacancy rates in adult protective services, especially in the Las Vegas area. The majority of the workers are social workers, and we have just struggled for to recruit and retain social workers. So we are asking to upgrade those social workers in adult protective services to mirror those in child protective services. And here what we did is we took these positions, these are several positions throughout the we looked at how to reclassify and a couple new positions, really trying to address our staffing challenges, and based on the fact that the workload has increased and the complexity of services across many of our programs has intensified. So we're trying to make sure that our staff are adequately that. So we have in 32 budget account 3208 is our let me make sure right, NEIS, our early intervention services, so a new health program manager position there. And a new social service manager too. So we're reclassifying a couple vacant positions to create 2 new positions there. In budget account 3209, which I had to make sure, yeah, it was a reclassifying a psychological development counselor. This is in the autism treatment assistance program. This counselor will help with screening and getting kids enrolled in the program and increasing the wait time for eligibility. In budget account 3151, the chief elder rights, we're just asking for that position to be aligned with other attorney positions across the state. It's just an equity alignment there. For some reason, that position requires a licensure as an attorney, but isn't paid the same as other licensed attorney positions. Continuing with positions, accounting assistants, some budgeting positions, reclassifying and upgrading a few in our budget, our administrative account. In 3266, several reclassifications. And then in 3266, also for the statewide independent living council, requesting the one administrative upgrade to a program officer and a social services program 2 to a social services program 3. And then the last area that we really looked at is provider rate increases, knowing that we're having the challenges we are around services and ensuring that all of our programs are able to serve people. We had looked at which programs we might want to try to get rate increases. So we are requesting a rate increase in the family preservation program. We're requesting a rate increase in the COPE and PAS program. And that one we are requesting to align with any changes in the Medicaid program as well. The family support fiscal intermediary program, which serves in the developmental services, we're asking for a small rate increase there. That's a monthly stipend to families that we're trying to get increased. Then there is a provider rate increase for developmental services for all of the providers across that array. And we did have an item for special consideration to do a rate increase for the early intervention community partners. That one, both the developmental services and the early intervention rate increases are based on third-party rate studies that were completed in the last year. So we had outside vendors come in and complete full rate studies, and we are just putting forward their recommended rates. And as some of you know or don't know, 3266 is our largest budget, and it's very complex and very confusing for both the program staff that work in it and the fiscal staff that try to manage it. So we are trying to break that up. So you'll see several transfers here in this budget. We will be creating some new transfers or some new budget accounts. So the planning, advocacy, and community services unit will be going into a new budget account 3278. The SILC will be going into its own budget account 3283. Adult protective services and long-term care ombudsman programs will be going into a new budget account 3282. And then you see some transfers of positions just to align with duties. And then you'll see here the transfer, the money follows the person program from the Medicaid division to ADSD, as well as the focus program, which is the facility outreach and community integration services. We really worked with Medicaid and feel that aging and disability could better serve people in transitioning them out of facilities and back into the community by working with in partnership with our community partners and identifying people that are ready to transfer and making sure we get them what they need to transfer. We really have the stronger relationships in the community than Medicaid does. So we're really excited. We've been meeting with this team to work on this transition and identify how we can improve the services and get more people transitioned out of facilities. So we're excited about this opportunity. So with that, I'll take any questions, but I also did put the link here. We do post our agency request budget on our website. And then when governor recommended budget comes out, we will post that on there as well. So the entire budget for agency request is available on our website.
Dawn.
Yeah, hi, this is Dawn Lyons. Hi, Dina. Thank you for
Dawn.
providing that summary. I really appreciate you taking the time to do that. And just giving us an overview of what's planned. And I understand that's contingent upon, you know, further approval. So there was a question I had about when you were going over the staff reclassifications and re-budgeting for staff in particular. I noticed that the SILC staff said that it would be coming out of the state budget. But as far as I understand, it's coming out of SILC's budget. Is that correct? It won't be coming from state general funds.
I believe there's that one. Let me go back to, was it showing?
It said state general funds, the full amount.
Well,
let me follow up. You're right. I believe it was supposed to be coming out of the SILC budget. So I'll follow up and verify. Maybe that could just be a typo on my part when I copied it over.
Okay, I was just curious about that because I know that it could all change because the governor is doing that review of all of our state classifications as it is. So maybe all of ours will change anyway. So who knows, but I appreciate that clarification. And I know that the regional services, they are in dire need of staffing and appropriate staff pay. So I appreciate that Aging and Disability Services is really working on improving that for the clients that are served at the regional centers. It's a big deal. So that's huge. And that was the only question I had. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I see Mary's.
Mary's.
Dina, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Mary.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Dina. And thank you for making the presentation. I wanted to say that here at the Southern Nevada Center for Independent Living, we're happy to see focus and money follows the person transition into Department of Aging. I know in Medicaid, such a big division that it's easy to lose track of what your target market is. But with that being said, I don't know if this is the appropriate question for your budget or not, but do you know if they were able to add any additional funding to the waiver programs that does work with focus and does work with money follows the person, because that continues to be a barrier in transitioning individuals?
A great question. So yes, we were able to, every year we have caseload projections are always put forward, as well as the wait list. So I showed you the waiver wait list for developmental services.
Right.
But the money for the FE and PD waivers, the frail elderly and physically disabled waivers, are in the Medicaid budget, but they are always funded at caseload and wait lists based on Olmstead planning. So you will see those in the Medicaid budget rather than ours.
Okay, thank you. We appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Actually, I have a follow-up question, if it's okay, Julie.
Yeah, sure.
This is Dawn Lyons. Thanks, Mary. I actually did have a question about that with the focus and all that coming to Aging and Disability Services. Will Aging and Disability Services be vigilant in making sure that organizations that serve people with disabilities of all ages are able to participate in that outsourced funding or the sub-awardees.
Yes, and I think that's one of the strengths of bringing it to us is we have those relationships with the community partners. And so we can encourage and enhance and build the capacity for more people to receive those fundings, right, and support folks with transition. So I think that we will absolutely work hard to make sure that everybody that we're working with now and anybody who we're not really is figuring out how do we bring in more folks to help us support people in their homes.
Any other questions?
You guys are letting me off pretty easy.
Yeah. Thank you so much. We always appreciate your time.
Absolutely, my pleasure. And I look forward to updating you on what the next part of the process.
Good luck. Now I'd like to call Cheyenne to give us any opera.
Thank you, Julie. Cheyenne for the record. Before I get started into some of the other ADSD updates, I wanted to ask if there were any specific, I guess, process questions related to the Olmsted plan that our contractor, social entrepreneurs, could answer for the group. Because we have Lisa Watson here today. I know we're going to table some of the discussion for tomorrow, but Lisa Watson isn't going to be available tomorrow. So I wanted to just pause for a second to see if there were any questions from the SILC that Lisa maybe needs to answer.
Thank you for doing that. Does anyone have any questions for Lisa?
And I guess I should explain. So Lisa is the representative from Social Entrepreneurs, and Social Entrepreneurs is the entity that is really helping guide ADSB and the steering committee through this process, making sure we're doing the community outreach and gathering all the information and whatnot. Dawn, I see your hand.
Yeah, this is Dawn Lyons. Hi, Lisa. Thanks for being here. I do have a question for you. And I can't remember the name of the report, but there was a survey, and initial survey that was done by the NSED. And their information was really, really important. I thought that the data that they came up with. What is the plan for incorporating their suggestions moving forward? Exactly. I know that's a hard answer or hard question to answer, but if you could just kind of give us an idea, that would be awesome.
No, I think that was a really good question. So we will actually be taking up the survey. I've asked the steering committee in our kickoff meeting, like, what are the most important things that came out of that survey in terms of the results that we should use moving forward? Specifically, we will be using that information to actually inform some of the consumer workshops that we're planning to do that I think Cindy referenced when she spoke about the process earlier. So we'll take those results and kind of dive a little bit deeper into those areas through the consumer workshops. So that's one way that we're going to use the data. But like I said, we're also asking the steering committee in our next meeting, like, what are the things here that pop out to you as kind of the most important things that we should explore further, both through the consumer workshops, but we're also doing 20 key person interviews. And I think that was actually a recommendation that came out of that survey before we were going to do that before the survey even results we had. So it was kind of nice alignment that it just worked out that way. But great question. I think I answered it. I hope I did it.
Yeah, the qualitative information or the qualitative data is just as important, if not more so. So thank you.
Absolutely. And I would like to say, I know that Cindy referenced this as well, that we put out that fact sheet in the hopes that we could kind of level the playing field and make sure that everyone has a basic understanding, at least, of the Olmsted framework that we're working in. But we also, in conjunction with ADSD, put together a web page that offers not only kind of basic information, it also offers the timeline for our planning process. And it gives any member of the public an opportunity to weigh in on our process or on the document as it's being developed throughout our planning, which goes through October. So I will drop that into the chat so that everybody has easy access to it, both the fact sheet as well as the link to that webpage.
Then did you have a question?
I do. Thank you, Julie. Good afternoon, Lisa. For the record, I'm Mary Evilsizer with the Southern Nevada Center for Independent Living. And Lisa, the last time we worked on a major Olmsted plan, part of the challenges that we faced is we understand that Olmsted is about assisting individuals with disabilities live in the most integrated setting possible. And unfortunately, today in Nevada, we have the same issues we had, gosh, 10, 20 years ago. And that is, there are some services we don't have in state. And to be honest, we don't have the funding to have or to fund those services again. And I know that the Olmsted is a big, major project, and there's so much to look at and so much detail. Have you set, or has somebody set up some protections to make sure that we are able to include the most integrated setting here locally? But how do we accommodate individuals that have to be moved to another state?
So I'm not quite clear on the question. Are you asking, like, what are we going to do to address that issue, or what are we going to do to explore the issue?
What are we going to do to safeguard that we don't go into an Olmsted plan where we develop a plan where we do a really good plan on making sure that our own services here in Nevada are do provide the integrated setting for individuals with disabilities, but to keep in mind also that, for example, if you have an individual with a traumatic brain injury that's going to need somewhat of a long-term stay, we have an option of Casa Colina in California. If you have a family that has a member with a disability that might need long-term care, and it can be a child, we have facilities in Utah that we can send them to, but we can't accommodate our citizens in Nevada with some of the services that we just don't have. So how do we develop safeguards that we are looking at what we do have in the state, but also looking to see what we don't have that we might plan for through the Olmsted plan?
So I'm going to take a stab at this, but I'm actually going to probably defer to Cheyenne to let folks know if I got this right or wrong. Okay, so because I'm not an expert in Olmsted or in ADSD services, rather I'm an expert in processes. So
Right.
yeah, but so what I can tell you is I think we will be looking as an element of the Olmsted planning process, like what are we doing to adequately assess what people's needs are and connect them to the setting that best meets their needs. And we'll apply the Olmsted sort of framework. There's kind of 3 qualifying factors that we need to look at to do that. So I think that we'll be looking at that. Did I get that right, Cheyenne, or is there anything you'd like to add?
No, I think you got that right. And then I would just add from a process standpoint, or maybe not a process standpoint, more like a philosophy standpoint. The Olmsted plan is a tool for ADSD in planning services and setting policies and developing programs and budget priorities, but it's also a tool for our advocacy groups to be able to utilize in the advocacy for the things that are in the Olmsted plan, correct? So we're putting forth this plan with a wide variety of community input and taking into consideration the needs of the community, but the advocacy voice, particularly when you think about things that take legislative action, that's where the advocacy voice comes to be really important. So I think it's going to be a shared effort, not to take the onus off of ADSD. We're going to do everything in our power to use that tool and to make things happen. But we know the power in advocacy, and that's why groups like the SILC and all of our other advocacy groups exist, right?
I would like to just kind of to put a pin on it, Mary, for you, beyond kind of looking at the assessment systems to identify like what placement is best for folks, we will be taking a look at like when there are out-of-state placements, like what are the things that are driving those decisions, and is there any opportunity to address those through the plan? So I hope that that kind of satisfies the question. But if you continue to like have issues with it, please feel free to reach out to me. I will also in the chat drop my contact information, but it's also on the fact sheet.
Oh, just one quick comment. Thank you both, and thank you, Cheyenne. To us, we see the process as how do we implement safeguards, like, and you just answered the question, Cheyenne. It is a matter of philosophy. It's a matter of seeing where our voids and gaps are, what's happening to the citizens in our disability community. But Lisa, I see it as part of the working tool for the overall plan, just safeguards to not get lost. But I feel assured by what you've said that the safeguards or the analysis will be there. And then Cheyenne, I feel very comfortable having you on board with that as well. Thank you both. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. This is Dawn Lyons. So I have a question after. I just want to clarify. Are you saying then that this Olmsted plan is basically going to be a tool for advocacy rather than an actual plan for services?
This is Cheyenne. I see it as both. There's a plan for services, but sometimes that plan for services comes to fruition through advocacy.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying. I mean, it is needed. Obviously, advocacy bodies, we've been asking for data for a long time, and that would be great to have it. So if that's included in the plan, that would be amazing. And so, yeah, I follow you there. I do understand that this Olmsted plan is an aging and disability services Olmsted plan, and it's not a statewide Olmsted plan. So I understand you're limited as to how much authority you have. And I do agree with what Cindy was saying, if any of you made it out, that, it would have been much better to have a more comprehensive statewide plan, which I think DHCFP or DPBH, sorry, the Division of Public and Behavioral Health did, but it didn't, maybe they didn't get as much investment as was needed, since we're making our own now as a different agency. So I appreciate that Aging and Disability Services is doing this. I do. I think we can do better next time.
I would just say to that point, Dawn, that the ADSD has had this conversation, and we're preparing to actually present to the steering committee at this month's meeting, like a recommendation that we actually work towards a statewide plan. We know that now is not necessarily the time to do it because BHCI had other pressures that were, that were presenting themselves that required them to develop a plan themselves. But it's something that we're ready and positioned to propose that be one of the goals, that we work towards a unified state plan in the future.
I do appreciate that. This is Dawn Lyons. I want to reiterate, I do appreciate all the work being done on this, and I think it's a good thing to do, and I think it's necessary. And I'm not pointing any fingers or saying, casting any blame, and I understand that the other Olmsted plan was a little bit reactionary in that regard. Maybe, like I said, maybe we can all do better as a state next time, like you said.
Thanks, Dawn.
Thank you. And just to close this topic real quick, there is one question in the chat. It says, have the dates been set for the 8 public comment workshops? And I don't think they've been set yet, but they will be soon, right?
They will be. So we actually meet next week with the steering committee for our second meeting. And it's at that time that we actually have to finalize the locations, and the locations will drive the dates. But we expect that we will be doing massive amounts of outreach in conjunction with the steering committee and ADSD so that everyone knows when and where those will take place. We hope, again, this will be dependent upon the sites that we choose and their availability, but we hope to be able to do those in the month of February.
Thank you. Okay, in terms of other ADSD updates, I have just a couple. First, I would like to introduce to the group Nikki Haig. She is our new community engagement manager. That position was previously filled by Lisa Torres, for those of you that remember Lisa Torres. So we'd like to welcome Nikki. We're excited to have her on board, and she will be working with all of our councils and commissions, working with our regional coordinators and the community engagement model that we had talked about at the last meeting, and supervising some of our AA administrative assistant team members who do a wide variety of things for our team. So we're really excited to have Nikki and to engage on these next efforts. On that note, the recruitments for the 3 regional coordinators are live, and we are starting to review resumes and look at interviews for those positions. So we're excited about that. I also want to talk just kind of briefly, you saw it in Dina's budget presentation, but we're reorganizing a couple of our units within ADSD. So the Planning, Advocacy, and Community Services unit and the Community-Based Care unit is being reorganized into the Office of Community Living. The Office of Community Living will have 4 sections. One will be intake and operations, which will encompass the home and community based services waiver for the frail elderly, and the physically I always hate these names. I mess them up, but the PD waiver, the physically disabled waiver. So the intake and operations for those waivers, as well as our prescription assistance program and our taxi assistance program. The other section, the second section in the Office of Community Living will be supportive services, which encompasses our communication access services program and the case management for our waivers, along with COPE and PAS. The third section is our community services and grants. So that encompasses all of our Older American Act programs, the assistive technology for independent living, and the Medicare assistance program. And then the fourth section is my section, and that's the planning section, which encompasses our No Wrong Door efforts, strategic planning efforts, councils and commissions, data and reports, and community engagement. Okay, So right now we are really looking at it just from a logistical standpoint of the day-to-day operations of that reorganization. And we'll be issuing out a press release on that soon in the next probably 2 to 3 weeks. But we're excited about it to bring all of these programs together and to help support individuals living in the community. So I mentioned at the last meeting that we received a grant to focus on the governance structure for our No Wrong Door system. And part of that grant is the development of a steering committee to help us with the planning of our governance structure and some of our long-term planning around the No Wrong Door system in Nevada. So I offered an opportunity for a member of the SILC to be a part of that steering committee. And I'm about to say this, but Dawn, I might be correct. You may have to correct me. I'm not sure that we have gotten a designee from the SILC yet. Is that?
No, we haven't. Did you ask me? Because
I announced, no, I announced it in the last meeting as an opportunity for the SILC. So
I think we missed that. I know I did. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I did too.
That's okay. So I wanted to bring it up again because we are planning to kick off that committee. And so perhaps, I don't know if you guys want to discuss that today and make a vote on that, or if you want to just send me an email later. I just want to make sure we extend that opportunity to the SILC.
Is anyone interested?
I'm sorry, Julie, I didn't catch that.
But I'm asking the council, is anybody interested in volunteering?
I would be if no one else wants to. This is Dawn Lyons.
Do we need a motion?
I motion that Dawn be the go-to.
Second.
I second that. Havana Davis for the record.
Any objections? Okay, Cheyenne, you got your member.
All right, thank you.
I was gonna tell, this is Renee. Cheyenne, I was gonna tell you I'd help out if you wanted, but I guess nobody's hearing me.
Sorry.
That's the second time, Renee, huh?
Oh. Can anybody hear me?
Renee, would it be okay, Cheyenne, if Renee was my backup?
Yep.
Okay. Is that okay, Renee?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Does anyone have any other questions for Cheyenne?
I wanted to also give you all a quick update.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize you were in that.
Sorry, I'm trying to be fast.
No, go for it.
But in the last meeting, that was about a week before the October interim finance committee meeting. And so I had given kind of a brief high level overview of a number of requests that were going to the interim finance committee for approval for a variety of different projects, both from to help support infrastructure building within ADSD, as well as address various program needs and wait lists. So all of those projects were approved in the October IFC. It was totaling just over, I just want to make sure it's totaling just over $43 million in funding. And we are currently beginning some planning for these projects, but they're also on hold pending the formal notice of award from the governor's office. So more to come on those. And I do have a summary sheet that I will send out to Dawn and Wendy to distribute to everyone. I forgot to hit send on that last week, so I apologize, but I'll send that out, and we'll be happy to provide any more in-depth information on those projects at the next meeting if you all would like. And I think that's it, Julie. I apologize. That's okay.
Okay, now, does anyone have any questions for Cheyenne?
This is Dawn Lyons. Thank you, Cheyenne, for explaining that to us, and I will definitely get that distributed once I get it. So,
I'm sorry. This is Cheyenne again. May I ask one question of the group before I stop talking? Okay.
No, go for it.
I wanted, I'm going to be talking again anyways. Okay. So I wanted to ask the group if there was any need or any desire to have other ADSD programs come to present to the SILC. I don't know if there is a need or a desire for the SILC to learn more, say, about the Office of Consumer Health Assistance or Adult Protective Services. I try to provide updates on some bigger items that I know of those things, but if in future meetings you all would like to hear from other groups, please let me know and I can help coordinate some additional updates.
I think for sure APS, because our body is at such risk for abuse. I think that would be really appropriate. Dawn?
thank you. This is Dawn. Oh, I thought you said me. Sorry.
Yeah, Dawn and then Mary.
Oh, okay. This is Dawn Lyons. So I would really like to actually see us receive the CLEO report, just like the CSPD does, because that gives us an overview of what all of the programs, where all the programs are at. And I know that they're kind of in charge for advising on that, but it's good for us to hear that too, so we know, what kind of support is needed where. Also,
can I ask what the CLEO report is?
Tell me if I'm wrong, Cheyenne. I'm going to try this. It's caseload. What does the E stand for? Can you finish that for me?
That's funny. This is Cheyenne. As Julie was asking that question, I was like, I don't actually know what CLEO stands for. I just call it the caseload report.
Yeah. So what it is, I can't remember what exactly the acronym is, but I know the first two are caseload, and it's what it does is it tells you what the caseloads are, what the wait lists are, and it gives you a little bit of a background on what the reasoning behind it might be. And it's just an overview of each program through Aging and Disability Services.
They don't want us to know that information.
I believe, Dawn, this is Linda, I believe it's caseload expense operations.
And Linda gets against the good stuff.
Well, I will definitely spell out the acronym so we know. And then Mary.
Thank you for the offer, Cheyenne. I think it might be interesting as a council if we could maybe hear from programs associated with nursing home transitions. Focus is coming on board with ADSC, money follows the person. Also, the waiver program is critical for the transitions and personal care attendant services. Maybe just package them as a transition, because focus is also diversion, and that's critical in our community too, for preventing individuals from entering the nursing home. And then one other request, I don't know when it will be ready, but at any given point, if it is ready, the possibility about an organizational chart of services for the Office of Community Living under the Division of Aging. I know it's just starting now, but that would help us as advocates to understand what services we might be able to guide individuals in need towards, and how we can help them develop a path to get to those services.
This is Dawn Lyons. I think you already have that, don't you? Is it something that I could distribute?
I think we do. I think, and we're going to put that information out as part of our press release. So,
okay, cool. And maybe we could include that focus program and nursing home information in the Clio. I don't know why that's not usually included in that, or how that works, but that would be a good thing to include.
thank you. And just so for everybody's clarity, focus in MFP, that's in the budget proposal. So if that's approved through the legislature, it wouldn't transition to ADSD until July 1.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, that's it for my updates. Thank you.
Okay, and then we have number 8, Cheyenne speaking of the internal process for evaluating applications for sub-awards.
Thank you. So Cheyenne, for the record, thanks for having me back. I appreciate it. When it comes to our sub-award processes, I want to kind of start like at the beginning and go down into the funding decision process. So we start really with a notice of funding opportunity. And the notice of funding opportunity describes some background about the programs or services that are up for funding, any known challenges that are facing the community, and the basically the reason for this notice of funding opportunity. The notice of funding opportunity also includes funding requirements, the instructions for the application process, and the scoring criteria for the applications. We develop that information based on a number of different pieces of information, including strategic priorities, state plans, known gaps in services, limited, whatever the requirements of the funding source are, etc. We also publish for, I would say for most of our services, for our standard services, we post what is called service specifications. And these outline like defining what a unit of service is, what are documentation requirements, eligibility requirements, things like that. So once that notice of funding opportunity is published, it goes out to the community. We receive applications, and the applications go through both an internal review process and historically an external review process. And we're in the midst of kind of revamping, particularly our external review process. But internally, applications are first pre-screened to ensure that they have included all the required application elements. They were submitted within the deadline, that sort of thing. And then in our internal team, our program coordinators, they review the applications based on the published scoring criteria. And we have a scoring sheet that they utilize to notate the strengths and the weaknesses of the application, as well as their recommendations. On an external review, we typically will try to recruit external, what we call outside reviewers. And we used to have a list of volunteers that were interested in being external reviewers. I would say in the last 3 or 4 years, we've basically lost that volunteer base of external reviewers due to people retiring, moving out of the state. The pandemic, it really impacted our ability to have external reviewers. So one of the things that we're looking at is to rebuild that volunteer list and to strengthen that process. Once the internal reviews are done and the external reviews are done, that information is compiled, and we go into the decision-making process. So in the decision-making process, we are looking at the application scores. We're looking at the gaps in services, the available funding, any strategic priorities that are set all the way from the governor's office down to any specific strategic plans that we have in place. And also balancing out service needs across the state, and compiling all of that information, and then making funding decisions based on all of that information. I can tell you that almost always our requests for funding greatly outweigh the available funding. So I can't remember which cycle it was, but an example is in our notice of funding opportunity for supportive services for older adults. We had around $10 million available for funding, and we had a request around $20 million. So when we make our funding decisions, we really are trying to be very thoughtful in terms of where are services available today and where are those gaps in services, what are the highest priority needs as identified by the community, etc. There are some agencies that do funding decisions. They'll do sort of a cutoff just simply based on the scoring of the application. But that is not a strategy that we have used at ADSD, just because we know sometimes there are needs in areas and good partners in those areas, but maybe the scoring just didn't reflect that for whatever reason. So that's kind of our process in a nutshell. Don told me I could kind of keep it high level, so I'm going to keep it high level, particularly in the interest of time, and I'll take it on questions. And Don.
Thanks. This is Dawn Lyons. I have one question. And I don't know that if you answered it and I missed it, so forgive me if you did, but when you decide, or when, not you personally, but when Aging and Disability Services decides what's going to be an internal review and what's going to be an external review, how does that work? Do they consider like who that program is going to be directly affecting and whether or not they should have a say, or or is any of that involved in those decisions?
Well, I will say in an ideal world, we would have external reviews for every competitive notice of funding opportunity. There's been some exceptions made to that in the last 3 or 4 years. And frankly, I'll say it's come down more to a resource issue and the inability to get volunteers to review the applications. So we're hopeful as we look towards our 2023 processes that we'll be able to recruit external volunteers. And you'll be seeing emails about this come out. So if you're interested in reading grant applications and scoring grant applications, we would appreciate volunteers.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, because I think that, sorry, this is Dawn Lyons again. I think it's really important for, and it says in statute in 427A, I can't think of the dot whatever, but it says that people with disabilities or, people in the community who are affected by these programs will be consulted before programs are established or policies are created and that kind of stuff. And so it's important to include people with disabilities, of course, whenever it's going to affect people with disabilities. So I think it's important for this group to know here and for the general public to know that, if you are being affected by these programs and you have the opportunity to evaluate who's going to be providing those services for your community, to be involved, because if you're asked, because that is an important job. So thank you.
Thank you. Yep. And just so everybody knows, when we do recruit external reviewers, we before we assign them applications, we do have them disclose any potential conflicts of interest so that they are not assigned applications where there may be a conflict of interest. So
I just, this is Ace Patrick. I just wanted to echo what Dawn had said, because I know just having gone through our own process with NOFOs and subawards, it is quite the process, and it is time consuming, but I think it's also extremely important, like Dawn said, for people that are in the disability community that are affected by the programs to be involved. So I'm excited to hear you say, Cheyenne, that, when it comes to it, that when you're looking for and recruiting volunteers, that, that we might have a chance and an opportunity to be a part of that. I'm just curious too. So generally, like for one subaward for one thing in particular, how many different applicants do you generally get? I'm just curious, because I know how many we get for ours or have gotten in the past. I'm just kind of curious, if you can pick one and that you can think of and say, and let us know, just how many, do you have to go through?
I would, sure. So this is Cheyenne. So for example, one of our larger notice of funding opportunities in terms of the amount of funding that there is available for it and the number of applicants applications we receive is our older adult supportive services. And that one, we probably receive around 120 to 140 applications when it's competitive. And that covers a multiple different services. And then we probably fund, I don't know if I'm going to guess here, but I'll have to verify the information, but we probably come up or end up with around like 110 active subawards from that. So we do about, well, our team looks at the number of notice of subawards that we do each year, and it's around 400 subawards, but some of those could be amendments to existing subawards and things like that. By the end of this month, we'll have our 2022 subaward report that'll be published, and that highlights all of our different subawards. So
this is Ace again. Thanks, Cheyenne, for that. I was just curious because I know it's time consuming. So, you know, when you add up the number and the number of hours just to go through those, because I think it's a very thoughtful process that, you know, doing this. It's not something that you just like skim down and go, oh yeah, oh no. I mean, it really does take time to go through everything and really consider what it is you're looking for and whether or not that is fitting, you know, which you've got that subaward for. So thank you very much. I appreciate you answering the questions.
You're welcome.
And any other questions? Cheyenne? As always, thank you so much for your time, Cheyenne.
well, thank you. I always enjoy being here.
Okay, so item 9, we're going to postpone for tomorrow when Kim Adams will join us, which leads us to item number 10. John, could you do the proposed IL flight program in 5 minutes? 5 to 8 minutes.
5 to 8 minutes, is that correct? This is John Roseland for the record.
Yes.
You know, I'm going to say this, the SILC always puts me on a time limit. Do I talk too much?
I'll tell you what, if you don't finish today, we'll definitely get you to wrap up tomorrow.
Fair enough. John Roseland for the record, Aging Disability Services, the Nevada Assisted Technology Collaborative, and AT for Independent Living Program. Anyways, this presentation is really much less of a presentation, but it's really because of timing, we couldn't get on board with your last council meeting to kind of ask this question. You had a single line item and it wasn't fair or time to get that on the agenda. What has been requested of me internally with ADSD is to gather information for a possible blind services program, a pilot program. It has to do with the American Rescue Plan Act funding. I don't want to get into all of the details as to how this came about, but it really came from Raquel O'Neill's engagement in the community, and it's kind of just led to this being a topic. In a nutshell, what we're trying to do is I want to extend that out to the SILC, and that's where we just got done. I heard saying in the last couple of presentations here, you shouldn't be building programs without having the people that receive those services. So that's where we're at. That's where I'm at. I want to create opportunities And we have a very short time frame. Jeff Duncan said wants this proposal back by February 3rd. So this is like a rush to try to get some information from people that are blind or have severe visual impairments. What I initially want to do is just reach out to people and then create some opportunities to get that feedback. Naturally, the SILC is one of those entities that can support that, and you all need to make that decision on if you want to be on board. I'd say verbally, we have NDLC on board. They want to participate. I know that the last time there was actually this olive branch kind of extended out there was done by NDLC, where they had some open forums to have individuals come in and talk about the barriers that existed. Along the way, we'll be gathering that information, both from persons that have their own experiences or what they have gathered in their prospective locations, right? Whether they're in an organization, if they work within services. For example, I've talked to several individuals already, and both their professional perspectives as well as their personal perspectives. What we want to do is extend that to everybody that we can, anybody we can reach in this short period of time to try to create those opportunities. So my question would be, really is to the SILC, if that's something that we can do. And then the next question is, how can we try to roll some of these things out? The first step would be kind of planning, getting some of the people together that have already raised their hand and said, I'd like to give a shout out and lend my expertise into how we go about doing this. Online forums, in-person forums, combinations of both. How are we going to reach people? How are we going to do it fairly quickly? And how are we going to gather that information and come up with some pilot program guidance? Now, I spoke really quickly to try to keep within the timelines. There's lots of questions, but
Thank you.
I'll stop there.
Okay, Dawn.
Thank you. This is Dawn Lyons. Thanks, John. I would like to suggest, and this is really just a suggestion on my part, I don't know, you guys will have to tell me what you think, but that we either have 1 or 2 members of this SILC who are blind or low vision to kind of work on the sidelines with John on this project and advise him on behalf of the SILC, and maybe decide who those people might be today. And if you don't volunteer, I could always call you out, but you know, that's just an idea. What do you think?
I was gonna say the same thing. So yeah.
And I may have already reached out to members of the SILC. I would say I've reached out to 2 members of the SILC already to ask their direct involvement. So we may have already addressed those. You know, I guess one of the pieces is we need the supports to set up these meetings and do these types of things, is what I see. And create these opportunities for individuals to know that their voices are welcome. I can put together all the stuff of the barriers that we already know exist. Many of them have been around for a number of years. Like back in 2013, some of this stuff started evolving of some of the big gaps. But not only providing the barriers that we know, but the ones that we don't know. Some have been mentioned in the conversations I've just had with individuals, right? Those are really some important ones, because there's social, economical barriers that people have on top of the disability that impact those services. You know, our priorities sometimes may be just the barrier, the gaps in service that already exist. But what if those are already impacted more significantly based on where the person lives, how they live, and their economical status and so forth?
Okay. So real quick, does anyone want to volunteer, or do I need to volunteer?
Havana Davis, for the record, I'm sure that I would be a good fit for that thing. I want to be called out, so you guys go ahead and John, I think you probably already have my email address and things like that. So just get with me and we'll get started.
So Commander, John, for the record, thank you. Yes. And if you can, please check your junk email. I think maybe that's where my email might have ended up.
Not a problem. I'll get on top of it after this meeting and I'll get back to you with an email ASAP.
Perfect. Perfect. If not, I'll reach out to you. I'll get your contact in and we'll touch base by phone as well.
And John, this is Vicki Esther for the record, because I don't want to be called out. Thanks, Don.
So Vicki will be, that would be my next phase after kind of that first point. It is really going to be finding out some of the information that we need to know. You know, the older blind independent living, what services are there, and really trying to reach out to the consumers. That's really the consumers of those services are we have to be able to be a little bit vulnerable and say what was their experience, not just on what services. So I think Vicki, definitely you're on my list of individuals to look at the blind independent living, well as if there's any way to reach out to people that are receiving vocational services.
We have 60 seconds before I have to do public.
So this is Dawn Lyon.
Okay.
Ace Patrick has her hand up.
Yeah,
Ace,
that's
you also want to volunteer?
And John, could you call me? It's Vicki.
Yes. Can we? I think if we can continue this conversation. I know you guys got to wrap up for where you're at, but
okay. Yeah, I was going to suggest a motion, but we can wait till tomorrow so we can discuss it more because
I'd rather not rush this.
All right.
Let's put that up. Ace, we know you raised your hand, so I'll be first tomorrow.
Can I just say I'm proud of y'all?
Yeah.
Thanks, Julie. Yeah, I'll just quickly say, John, if you can use me, I'm available.
Amanda Davis for the record. I'm sure that John can use all of us, Ace, especially you.
Well, thanks, Evander. I appreciate that. Vote of confidence. Sometimes I'm not so sure, but you know, I'm in a different demographic as well. So, and some of the others here. So, you have a good selection here on the SILC, John, of blind and visually impaired people. So.
So yes, if we can continue on tomorrow, the next steps is really kind of fine tuning. You know, I'll talk forever if you guys let me, and I know we're running out.
I'm not gonna let you, John.
I'll mute up and we'll.
We will continue it tomorrow. I'd like to go for public comment. Any public comment? I'd like to say that I'm really glad we added another hour to our meeting. As the chair, I feel like it flows better. And if you guys have any comments, we would really like to hear your thoughts.
This is Ace Patrick for the record.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you, Julie. I think adding an extra hour was good, and we got quite a bit of work done, and I'm looking forward to tomorrow and putting John under the screws again with a time limit. Anyway, yeah, thank you very much. Good meeting.
Cody, did you want to say something?
Oh yeah, sorry, I meant to unmute myself. Yeah, this is Cody Butler for the record with the Youth Action Council. Just wanted to let everyone know that Youth Action Council is having their first quarterly meeting in a couple weeks on January 27th. And it's at 4 p.m. on Zoom. And so everyone here is welcome to attend if they want, but if you are going to attend, I'd recommend either reaching out to me or Dawn beforehand, so we don't inadvertently break open meeting law with a quorum of SILC members. But yeah, thanks everyone. I appreciate it.
This is Dawn Lyons. Cody, just to follow up on that, if you send me your invitation or notice or whatever you're going to send to your group, I can blast it out to the SILC and interested parties as well. It won't break a quorum because we won't be participating as members. We'll just be listening in and possibly providing public comment. So thank you.
Oh yeah, awesome. Thank you, Dawn.
Well, unless there's any other last minute comments, I'd like to thank our interpreters, and we will stand adjourned till tomorrow at 1.